This is the Derek King Sports Show. Cardinals, Blues, Mizzou Athletics, Chiefs. He has it covered. The Derek King Sports Show. Only on Gateway City Sports.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Let's get that audio turned down for you guys so you can actually hear me. How you doing this morning? It's a little cloudy, a little stormy here, so it's probably gonna blow up a nice little spring thunderstorm. I like saying that, spring. It's better than the alternative, winter. So, hence the title, NFL free agency. We need to talk about this a little bit because there's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot of players going back and forth, some signings. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to cover that here really quickly. And we are just going to do that from the good old mobile device. And this is the actual 2021 NFL free agency tracker over on CBS Sports. Number one, Dak Prescott. He has re-signed with the Dallas Cowboys. 4 years, $160 million. Now, there's some caveats to that, but that's basically what the deal is. And there's also caveats to these other deals that you have to take into consideration when you hear them. Some of them are guaranteed. Some of them are not guaranteed. Some of them have certain parameters that need to be met in order to be satisfied. You get the point. So, number two, Leonard Williams re-signs with the New York Jets, 3 years, $63 million, defensive lineman. Chris Godwin, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Bucks. They franchise tagged him. Brandon Sheriff, the guard for the Washington football team, whatever they're going to be called, and whoever's going to own them. They franchise tagged him as well. Trent Williams re-signs with the San Francisco 49ers. Offensive tackle, 6 years, $138 million. And we're just going to basically do the top 10. And then we're going to talk about upcoming free agents. Shaquille Barrett, edge rusher, re-signs with the Bucks, 4 years, $72. Allen Robinson re-signs with the Chicago Bears, or actually I shouldn't say re-signed. He was franchise tagged. The same with Justin Simmons with the Broncos, and the same with Taylor Moton of the Carolina Panthers. The one interesting one that's still out there that Strong Opinion Sports over on YouTube. I enjoy watching that young man over there. Go check him out if you can. But Kenny Golladay, that's a really interesting prospect in there in that top 10 that's unsigned from the Detroit Lions. I'd be looking out for him. That's a very good wide receiver there. But I just don't understand why he hasn't been picked up yet. Maybe it's a money thing, it's an agency thing, representation, who knows. But he would be a really good pickup for a good contending team. Another one of the things that I want to touch on that I had just said earlier was the players that are now unsigned that I think that would be a good addition to a potential championship team. Kenny Golladay obviously being the very first one, and you have Curtis Samuel, the former wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, is still sitting out there unsigned. They're going to be a good pickup there. Anthony Harris, I think, is a really good safety. 29 years old, coming out of Minnesota. He's unsigned. Same with Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram's getting a little bit up there in the age. He's taken a little bit of a step back, but he's still a really good, credible threat. You surround him with good teammates in that position, he'll thrive. He'll have good success. Juju Smith-Schuster is unsigned by the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to see what ends up happening there, whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers want to re-sign him and bring him back. That remains to be seen. Hasten Reddick, the edge rusher that had really good success last year with the Arizona Cardinals, is still unsigned. I see him re-signing with the Cardinals unless something else comes up. Patrick Peterson also with the Cardinals unsigned. Maybe you bring him back, maybe you don't. I don't know if that's a money issue. It'll have to remain to be seen. Jadeveon Clowney, edge rusher, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, is still out there unsigned. And then there's a smattering of other talent that's still out there. I really think, to be honest with you, the best prospect that's out there right now is Kenny Golladay, especially for a team that needs a wide receiver like a Joe Burrow or whatever. But, you got to remember, he's coming out of Detroit, and Detroit is synonymously bad. They're in a rebuild. They just got rid of their quarterback, Matt Stafford. They brought in Goff, who's mediocre, I think, at best. So we'll just have to wait and see what direction they end up going with it. That remains to be seen. It's hard to say right now at this point in time of the game what ends up happening, but we'll have to wait and see. Outside of that, let's go and let's look in on spring training a little bit, and let's talk about what's going on with your St. Louis Cardinals and what's been happening here lately. Obviously, I've touched on the whole Carlos Martinez thing and my disdain for his behavior and so on and so forth. There's a lot of good stuff that's coming out of spring trainings, things that I'm seeing that I like to see. Alex Reyes having his resurgence, I should say. They're words. I like to see that. I like to see Jordan Hicks. I'm going to get this out there eventually. Hicks getting some pitches, and even though he threw like 25 pitches to one batter, it's good for the first time in 2 years to see him out there throwing some pitches. Now, let's talk about this last game that they had against the Nationals, where the Cardinals won 4-2. Let's go down the lineup. Matt Carpenter, obviously, wearing the brown sombrero, 3 at-bats, 0 runs, 0 hits, 0 bases on balls. Tommy Edman only had 1 at-bat. Paul Goldschmidt, he only got 1 hit at 3 at-bats. Nolan Arenado, doing good. 2 hits, 1 RBI, 3 at-bats. Paul DeJong, wearing a golden sombrero. Again, it's just I'm seeing the same things from these same players, and that's what upsets me as a fan, and I know it upsets you guys as fans too as well, to see that kind of play. And now you guys could, and I know that there's folks out there that are going, why not just hit the ball? Well, here's the thing. And this is what I know. I know ball players. I talk to them privately in their everyday lives. Football players, baseball players, so on and so forth, any other sport. I talk to them. I have conversations with them. And the conversations I have is a lot of people don't understand the amount of money that's left on the table when you're not a home run hitter. You see, because the home run is the sexy thing. That's the sexy thing. That's what gets you paid at the end of the day. When you want that big contract, that's what gets you paid. The home run. I don't like it as much as anybody else does. I grew up in the small ball era. I grew up in the Whitey ball era in the early 80s. Watching that. Vince Coleman, Ozzie Smith, Willie McGee, so on and so forth. Lonnie Smith for a brief period of time. Bob Horner for a hot minute. It's not small ball. That was a very poor attempt at replacing Jack Clark. We don't have to get into that. I've had that conversation with friends of mine over the years. It was one of those things. We can get into that topic. We'll do maybe like a Cardinals history show or something sometime, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I like what I'm seeing so far from certain players that are going on in spring training, especially the pitchers. I like seeing these things, so I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy to see it. So, other than that, I mean, there's just, the usual stuff that goes on in spring training. It was an interesting tweet that Ben Fredrickson had put out. And, I love Ben to death, but me and Ben have a tendency to disagree on a lot of things. Not, personally, just, professionally. And I disagree with some of his perspectives and the way that he looks at things, whether it be about the Cardinals organization or whether it be about the St. Louis NFL forefront or whatever the case might be. Doesn't mean I dislike them. It doesn't mean that I don't read his stuff, because I do. I just disagree with some things, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree, or we can agree, or whatever the case is, and that's okay. But he had put out a tweet, said Nolan Gorman says he feels game ready at second base, would prefer to stay on dirt, but will add outfield if asked. Has a glove for everything but first. Has a glove for everything but first base. Has texted with Dustin Pedroia about second base advice. Said multiple times he just wants to help St. Louis Cardinals win. Well, it's good to see. I can appreciate that as much as anybody else. But I think that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that irregardless of how we feel about Matt Carpenter, his contract, I think second base is his to roam, at least for a little bit. They're going to give him some leash, and they're going to let him run for it, and he's not going to hit his weight in batting average. I'm sorry, he's done. I like Matt Carpenter. I've always liked Matt Carpenter. I've been a big fan of his, but he's done. He doesn't have a whole lot as far as an everyday player left to give you. He can't throw 80 poo, okay? He can't do nothing with his arm. He has no arm. He can barely run. He has no range. And he has very limited defensive capabilities. So what are you going to do with him? You're paying him how many millions of dollars? Here's what I would do. I'd put him on the bench, and I would eat the money. It's over. It's done, okay? And you're just going to have to deal with it. The simple fact of that, you paid him the money. Now you're going to have to deal with that contract. It is what it is. I would sit him on the bench, and I would use him in situational hitting. Lefty on lefty, righty on lefty, that kind of stuff. I would not put him in high leverage situations. I would put him in a scenario where you have a guy on first and you want to move him over. And it's an early inning game. It's in the fifth or sixth inning, and you need to take your starter out because he's at, 89 pitches and he hasn't been pitching that well. And you need to get a run in. Maybe it's a 1-2 run game. That's the type of scenarios where I would be using Matt Carpenter in, and I would be installing Tommy Edman at second base, period. And irregardless of if they have the DH or not, what are we talking about here? At the end of the day, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about Matt Carpenter playing every day at DH because he can't field and he can't play defense? He can't hit. That's why we're talking about the launch angle stuff with Paul DeJong and with Matt Carpenter. I've noticed that he's gotten away from that nice middle-of-the-road sweet swing that he was trying to get back to early on in spring training, and he's gone right back to that tomahawk, uppercut, chop, batting swing that he developed a couple of years ago and had some success and hit, 38 home runs? He got lucky, and that's what got him paid. Well, guess what? They figured you out. Now they know that you don't have the bat speed. You don't have the coordination. They're just changing the way they pitch you now. So now you can't get that uppercut, tomahawk, chop type of swing on a ball anymore. So you can't get that pitch on it. So you can't get that launch angle. That's what the kids are calling it now. Launch angle. You want to know what? There's something to be said about the fundamentals of the game that never go away, and they never change. When you're playing baseball, when you are playing baseball as a hitter, you square that ball up, period. You square it up. You see where it's coming in at you. Is it a two-seam? Is it a four-seam? What are they throwing you? Is it a, something with some cut to it? Obviously, as a younger kids, you're not going to see sliders, okay? You're not going to see them. They just don't. They don't really exist in the game at a young level because that puts a lot of stress on your elbow. Puts a lot of stress on your arm. Even throwing fastballs at, in the 80s in high school and, lower levels of college, even throwing fastballs at that level, it's going to put a lot of stress on your elbow and on your arm, and that's why you're seeing a lot of Tommy John. And it's sad, but it's the facts. It's what we're talking about here. And that's why, you're seeing a lot of these younger pitchers or younger hitters that are trying to develop this launch angle because they know it gets them paid. They know it gets them recognized. It's going to get you a seat on the club. I get it. I understand. That's okay. I'm not going to sit here and argue the fundamentals against it, but I'm just saying that's why you're never going to see what we saw during the 80s, during the Whitey ball era, small ball era, whatever you want to call it. Guys just don't play like that anymore. You're not going to see high batting averages. You're not going to see batting averages that are above 325 hardly anymore. You're just not going to see that. You're not going to see a Ted Williams batting average, a Lou Gehrig batting average, a Stan Musial batting average, when he was tearing it up, so on and so forth, Chai Cobb, whatever. You're not going to see that kind of a batting average anymore. 400, 425, 385, whatever. You're not going to see that. It does not exist anymore, and you're not going to see it. It's a fundamental change of the game that they have instituted as players to get themselves paid because the home run is sexy. We figured that out in 1998 with the home run race with Sammy and Mark. Irregardless of the consequences of what happened with steroids and committee investigations and everything else that went along with it. Fact of the matter is that if, people want the game to change, you have to change it at a fundamental level. It's that simple. So, enough of my stump speech. What are you guys looking forward to this coming season? What are you looking forward to in the upcoming NFL draft? Your favorite team? Is it the Chiefs? Is it the Cardinals? Is it, Who is it? The Green Bay Packers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Chicago Bears? What is your guys' view, or gals? What's your folks' view on your favorite team out there? Who are they going to draft? Who are they going to sign? What are they going to do? Are they going to do anything? It's been made very clear that the NFL cap is probably going to go down, which is surprising. We really thought it was going to stay steady, if not raise a little bit, but it's clear that that's the case. So that remains to be seen. Time before the NFL draft comes up. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be watching it. Might be doing a live stream during that, at least for the first few picks. And we'll see how things go. So that's a show for this week. I know it was a short one, but, not a ton to talk about. You got your signings, you got stuff like that, but we'll give it a couple more weeks, hopefully, and things will just continue to keep picking up, and we'll really get into the good stuff of the baseball, and really get into the heart of the football stuff and the conversation. Do tune in tonight to the XFL STL show if they are having one tonight. But I'm pretty sure that they should be having one tonight, the XFL to STL show. Make sure you tune into that because they've got some updates and some news on the XFL, CFL rumors, and everything that goes around that with the potential, maybe not, extension of the season, or maybe that they're going to be pushing things out or bringing things in. I don't know, but those guys do know. And you need to make sure to tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Go over to the Facebook page. Make sure you follow them. That's enough for me. Derek King Sports Show. I am out. I will see you guys next week with some more sports content. See you guys then. Take care.
This is the Derek King Sports Show. Cardinals, Blues, Mizzou Athletics, Chiefs. He has it covered. The Derek King Sports Show. Only on Gateway City Sports.